So you have already studied PN junction diodes in your 11th and 12th. So I won't discuss that in great detail, maybe just a quick reminder. So a PN junction diode consists of two semiconductors which have been doped. One is a P-type semiconductor, one is an N-type semiconductor. So this one has predominantly positive charge carriers or holes. This one on the N-type one predominantly has negative charge carriers or electrons. And when you create this interface between the P and the N, there is some crossover of these charges. And this creates in the middle what is called a barrier. And it gives rise to a barrier potential. So let's call it V barrier. What you can do, the symbol for a PN junction diode is like this. So this is the P side, this is the N side. Now there are two ways of connecting this diode. You can either connect the P side to the positive terminal, and this is called forward bias, or you can do it the other way. Which is called reverse bias. Now when you connect a diode in forward bias, it allows the charge carriers to cross the barrier, and so you have current being conducted. So high conduction, you can say that the internal resistance of this diode is low. But if you're in reverse bias, then it doesn't conduct, or you can say that the internal resistance is high. If you want to learn more about the physics behind why this is happening, so for example, in terms of conduction bands and valence bands in semiconductors, you can either look at Eggleston's book, there is some amount of detail in that, or wait a few trimesters until you come to your states of matter course. And I think in that course, you will look at these things in better detail. Now we can plot what is called the diode characteristic curve. And this is simply voltage versus current graph. So conventionally you put the voltage across the diode on the x-axis and you put the current through the diode along the y-axis. So of course if you supply a forward bias voltage, so you're putting a positive voltage, and then the characteristic looks something like this. So this is the forward bias region. As you can see, this curve goes up quite steeply, which means that if you take the slope of this, the slope is very large. But this slope is just 1 over the resistance, because the slope is current, change in current divided by change in voltage. So the inverse of the resistance is very large, or the resistance is very small. So that's why we say over here that the resistance is small and the conduction happens a lot. This value over here, where there is a sudden increase, is your barrier voltage, your barrier potential. And this depends on the solid state properties of your semiconductor. So for example, if you are using a germanium semiconductor, then VB is going to be something like 0.3 volts. and if you're using a silicon conductor, then semiconductor, this is going to be around 0.7 volts. So that depends on the properties of the actual physical diode itself that you're using. What happens when you apply a reverse bias? So now we are looking at the regime where the voltage and the current are both negative. In this region, of course, first of all, there is almost no conduction. You can see from the slope that the resistance over here is going to be very high. And then at some value, which is called the breakdown voltage, suddenly you will have this. This is called the breakdown or the avalanche region. And once you reach this part of the characteristic curve, basically your diode is spoiled. You have burnt it, it's not going to work anymore. You have irreparably damaged your diode. So we never want to reach the avalanche region. We will see some applications of the diode in the forward bias and some in the reverse bias over here up to the reverse breakdown voltage. Okay, let's look at some applications of diode circuits. The first that we are going to look at is called the diode full wave rectifier. Rectification is just a fancy way of saying if I give you an AC signal and I want you to convert it into a DC signal. You want to try and stop the oscillations. You want to make your signal as flat as possible. That is called rectifying. So that is the aim of what we are going to do. The circuit for this is very similar to what you have seen for Wheatstone's bridge. So the circuit looks something like this. So let's call this the input voltage. These are your 4 diodes over here. So let's call them D1, D2, D3, D4. And here, between these two terminals is where we are going to measure our output. So we'll attach over here some load resistance. So output is always across this load. Now let's see what happens. So this is the input, and right under this I'm going to plot the output as well across RL. So the input is of course a sine wave. Now during the positive half cycle, when this end of V is positive with respect to this end, you can see that the diode D4 and D2 are going to be reverse biased. So they will not conduct. The current will flow through D1 because this is forward biased. And then what have I done? Wait, there is one mistake over here. D2 should face this way. So this is the direction that the current will flow, and you will get a full output across RL. During the negative half cycle, so when this side is positive and this side is negative, now D1 and D3 have become reverse biased, but D2 and D4 will become forward biased, so they will conduct. And now the current will flow in this fashion. So once again, even when your V input is negative, you still get a positive output across your load resistance, because the current is always flowing through RL in the same direction. So both during the positive and the negative half cycles, you see you get a positive output. So in some sense, our signal has now become a little more DC, in the sense it's not oscillating to the positive and the negative values. So this has managed to some extent, rectify our circuit. What is the average value of the current over here? I'm going to define something called IDC, and I will define it as the average value of the current, where of course the current, if you look at Kirchhoff's voltage law, it is going to be V in divided by RL plus twice RD. RD is the resistance across each diode. So no matter whether it's a positive half cycle or the negative half cycle, the current is always passing through RL, and it is passing through two of the diodes. So the total resistance is RL plus 2RD, and V in divided by that gives you the current, where V in further you can write it as V0 sine omega t. And this is your I0 sine omega t. So the average value of the current now is going to be an integral over where the integral happens from 0 to, so if this is the time period, then this is t by 2, and over here in the output, because we always have positive cycles, it's sufficient to take the average only over this t by 2. And if you work this out, you will see that you get an answer I0 times 2 over pi. Now the output signal that we have, which looks something like this, you can think of it as being a sum of a constant part, which is like a DC, and on top of that there is some little wiggling. So this is like an AC. So the total current is IDC plus IAC, and we are not interested in the AC part. We want to get rid of the AC part. That's why we are doing all of this. So the smaller the AC part, the better it is for us. So we define a quantity called the ripple factor gamma, which is defined as the RMS part of that AC current that I defined before, divided by the DC part of the current. So if the DC part is more, and the AC part is less, then gamma will be small. So we want ideally a very small gamma factor. That's why we have the rectifier circuit. So I being equal to IDC plus IAC, let's square up this equation. Now I want you to remember that DC part is just flat, so this is like constant in time. The AC part is sinusoidal, so this square goes as sine square, and this, which is a product of the two, is just sinusoidal. So now if I take the average of this equation, then what I get is I RMS square, because average, square root of the average of the square is how we define RMS. So average of I square is just I RMS square. Average of IDC square is simply IDC square, because since it's not a time dependent thing, the average is just IDC itself. IAC square average becomes RMS, and average of a sine is just 0, so that doesn't come into the picture. So from this you see IAC RMS divided by IDC the whole square is I RMS square over IDC square minus 1, or gamma is square root now I RMS square is just I0, well I0 over root 2, and this IDC, as we saw previously over here, is just 2 I0 over pi. And this, if you work out just numerically, this turns out to be something like 0.482. So that means 48.2% ripple factor. Now what we want to do is we want to try and reduce this number. So for that we use what is called a capacitive filter. Once again, it's like your same rectifier circuit. Except that now we don't have just one load resistance in the middle. We have the load resistance but in parallel with that we have also put a capacitor. Now let's see what happens. So input is again sinusoidal. The output without the filter, so what we did before, and finally the output with the capacitive filter. So let's see what happens. So during the positive half cycle, everything is going on as usual, as we have seen before, and you get some output. And while this output is happening, the capacitor is starting to charge, and the capacitor charges fully. Now, as the input starts to reduce, so as we are over here now, the input is starting to go down. As the input starts to go down, you will find that the P side of this diode, let's call this D1, the P side of this diode starts to become more negative with respect to its N side, because the potential at the P side is reducing. So now D1 also becomes reverse biased. So now all of these diodes have become reverse biased, and the signal from the source is not reaching the load and the capacitor. So now the capacitor starts to discharge, and the capacitor discharges through the load resistance, and that is what gives us the output. So now the output is not coming because there is current coming from the source, it's current coming from the charge stored in the capacitor. And you remember how the discharge of a capacitor looks from the previous module. Instead of coming down like this, it starts to discharge like this. Now once again we are in the negative part of the in the negative cycle. So once again there is charging, and once it charges fully and the input potential starts to go down, once again all the diodes become reverse biased, and now the capacitor again discharges. So it looks like this. Once again, charge, discharge, charge, discharge, charge, discharge. So as you can see, we have gone from this V out without filter, which still had a lot of oscillations in it, to the V out with the capacitive filter, in which the output signal has now become quite flat. And that is exactly what we wanted. So now this difference, which is called the peak to peak ripple voltage, VR P to P, has become very small, and you can adjust it by adjusting what the value of the capacitor should be, because that will decide the charging and the discharging times.